Hey, so I'm gonna do another Thevina Talk and knit while I'm doing it because I like to knit. I have no idea who's actually going to see this. It might be Minka. This is my new friend and soul sister that I found through Poshmark, which for anybody who might see this when it doesn't exist is a way of getting clothes, buying clothes from one person's closet to the next. And anyway, I found her and she's found my stuff, and I asked her if there's anything she might want to hear about, but I was kind of thinking I might just talk a little bit about what I experienced coming into, say, the spiritual awakening world and being confronted with a bunch of vocabulary that was totally foreign to me, but then suddenly I threw myself into it and was looking up all this stuff. I think I mentioned in another video that I was even making a wiki for things like the whole Starseed thing, and Atlanteans and Pleiadians and Lyrans and Sirians and influences of all these things. And then there are things called Merkabas, and there's Akashic Records, and there's the Melchizedek family of people, and there was just a lot out there, I think, and timelines, jumping timelines, and gateways, portals, vortexes, quantum, everything. Now, I am definitely a physics, kind of nerd, and I'm very interested in astrophysics and panpsychism now, which is something I really find super appealing, and cosmopsychism, which is basically, I've already gone far afield, saying that our universe is like one of the base datum points or base levels, perhaps what my theory, what dark energy is consciousness, and that we live in the universe that we find ourselves precisely because our universe is finely tuned to create self-aware entities such as ourselves. If you tweak the dials pretty much in any direction, you get a universe full of hydrogen and no awareness. So that whole thing of we are all one, kind of, if you start looking, instead of putting everything to the least, like the tiniest thing, like quarks, gluons, bosons, things like that, but actually going out in the opposite direction, we could say really that our universe, the conscious universe, if it is such, which I think it is, that is actually our smallest datum point, is actually the entire universe. Like all is one thing. We can only ever compare it to the one. This is the universe we've got. We don't get to really see anything else. So perhaps everything really should be guided to be fitting the super macro level, the actual universal level, versus the super tiny, well, the both and of the quantum level, that the wavelength before it settles one way or the other. That went a long way fast. So I was going to talk about some terminology, especially Starseed, because that's one that when I first came across it, and it was a handy way to find other people that were in kind of a spiritual awakening sort of framework that I was experiencing, but I have since mostly moved away from that, and as a label or a descriptor, I don't find it particularly useful for me, but there is that sense, it kind of helps, I think, for those, once you find yourself kind of in a metaphysical realm, or say, for me, I have found myself now in a place a couple years into this where I feel like I really am straddling and experiencing at all times a metaphysical, multi-dimensional experience of really thinking about being a part of a universe which is basically not exactly self-aware, but that I am in a universe in which self-awareness in life is really meant to be the default setting, and that's why this is where I am, and that I am a part of that, and that if I am not experiencing my own consciousness, for all I know, the rest of it doesn't exist at all, and that each person who can really recognize that you are both, or that we are, say, an individuated, or say a fraction, or a, just one crystalline or one tiny DNA bit of, or a drop in the ocean, the same kind of thing, that you're part of some huge whole, like the entire universe, and yet there's also the experience that each of us have is really from within here. Now we can get all kinds of other perspectives, including with psychedelics, with other chemicals, alcohol, through all kinds of things. But that's, so what is it? Oh, so I don't call myself a starseed or anything, but it's been very helpful for finding other people who I think are going through a spiritual awakening and are recognizing that you're willing to think about things sort of existing, or things that don't break physics existing. So kind of what I've been thinking about a lot, especially with sort of the an extraterrestrial, but really, if consciousness is a base point throughout the universe, that it will manifest in a whole variety of ways, one of which is here in our organic form on this part of the universe, but it could very well, with different chemicals and soups and things, consciousness could find itself in a very different form. And describing having traits, much like, I guess, like astrology, or the kind of earth tarot that I want to make, which would have to do more with magnetic resonance and where you are on the planet and what's going on in the dynamo and the Schumann resonance when you're born, or something like that. I just think that would be, we're all very deeply tied to this particular planet, which is an alive planet. It's changing all the time. And that the effects of the electricity and the gravity and all of that on us as organic electric beings probably means a lot, perhaps even more so than what happened to be spinning around up above the planet at the time. But I also think they'll probably work together. But when I was first going into this and finding out, I was reading a lot of things about people talking about having experiences of all different kinds, and I realized I was being super judgy about a lot of them, including things about Atlantis, or different parts of Mount Shasta, or other things, or anyway, I was being very, very judgy, because I can't possibly know what somebody else's personal experience is, or their psychedelic experience, and I hadn't had any psilocybin back then, and I have since, and so I have a lot more understanding and open-mindedness about a lot of things, which is, I think, a plus. But my thought on kind of all the kind of names and planets and star systems that kind of get tossed around, and I've tossed around my own, which is Draconian, about the dragon energy and Draconian system, not about being stern as it's kind of commonly used, but to do with dragons. And realized I had written down somewhere, actually a year ago, about, in dragon form, tending at the garden of consciousness. So in my own astrophysics kind of way, I guess what I'm thinking is that the different qualities of experience something, if they seem to be beyond a human experience, that putting different stellar descriptions on them are one way to differentiate it from having kind of a three-dimensional, very human on planet Earth kind of experience. So that's a very also long-winded thing about I don't even know what anymore. But I was thinking a lot about communities of energetically really awake people, and that we are more and more, it seems, able to find each other. One of the terms that has come to me a lot is about being an emissary and helping to find other people, and to really, really keeping both feet firmly, both and, right? The wave function, both very 3D planet I am a medical biller encoder, right? Keep bringing that back up. I'm not branding myself. I'm not whatever. But I really feel I'm having a lot of the time a very different experience from a lot of people around me. But the people that I can plug into who seem to understand that the resonance of the words that I might say, that there are other meanings that are going along with it that vibrate at a different, I'm going to just say metaphysical level, and that if you're tuned into it or have that resonance, then you get multi-dimensional part of the message. And otherwise, if you don't, you're just getting the words, and that's fine. It's not bad. It just, there seems to be a certain level of being kind of awake to recognizing one's own multidimensionality and still recognizing that you're in, very much the 3D gravity well, super amazing, gorgeous planet Earth with a dynamo in the middle. And that I'm doing both of those things most of the time. And I'm, circular, keeping going back around. But what else was I going to say about that? Oh, that once there are perhaps enough of us that we are beginning to actually vibrate kind of amongst one another to be able to really work together to build the kind of world that we want to live in. And for those who really can't get it, it may just seem very, very confusing. And I don't know, but in order for us to take care of the planet and make sure that we are not extinguishing our particular version of consciousness in this part of the galaxy, we might want to step up the pace a little bit. What else was I going to talk about? I am not sure now, but I've had one big thing that came to me today, which was about being a species of one. I was listening a second time to the person that I've been plugging into the most right now. She goes by Ashtara Ren of Starseed Energetics. She too realizes she doesn't really use Starseed much anymore, but it allowed me to find her a while back. Was listening to one of her, basically, to me they kind of feel like channeled sessions, but this sense of being that my species is the entire universe, or multiverse, oververse. I'm not sure what it might be. It's pretty big, and that I am both part of it and am it, and that kind of what I've instinctually perceive is that we as Homo sapiens sapiens will probably never actually be able to interact with any other self-aware entities in the universe. The message actually that I got was that if we met ourselves, we can't meet ourselves because that's a paradox. Although the fact that the things that we're looking at in the slit experiment for protons, that things change when it knows we're looking at it, but that's the whole kind of spooky stuff in quantum theory. But I guess that if we were, well, I guess that doesn't really make sense. If there can be intelligence here to this degree, then of course there can be somewhere else, but the universe is so vast that the likelihood of us being able to figure things out, to communicate and all that kind of stuff just seems really improbable. And it could be that we really are the ultimate manifestation of self-awareness in the universe. What's to say that we really aren't the kind of the end result? That we really are the focus of the universe. Now, it's not as popular, but it used to be pretty popular perception of, hey, maybe we are a manifestation of a really highly complex result of enough complexity of consciousness that we can now really see what we are a part of, which is something huge and vast. And I find it really exciting. Trying to think what else I wanted to talk about. I can always talk about terms and I don't know if anyone gets confused. I got some kind of confused about all the Melchizedeks and light language and things, and of the light language I enjoy different people's interpretations of it. Because I think it's a non-linear way to just kind of absorb resonances of sound, which for me just means, hey, it's a way for me to absorb something that I don't really need to have it in actual English or something that I can readily define. There's something about hearing just the sounds from within that energetic sacred space that seems to bring unique understandings with it. And so I enjoy it depending on who does it. Different people do things different ways, and they have different hand gestures and different terminology. There's usually an invocation of people or ideas, concepts. Anyway, I find all of this just fascinating, and a very creative process that our particular species, we love to tell story, and that whether we say we're a lineage from a different part of the galaxy, or we're dealing with actual lineage trauma from lifetimes of our actual DNA, RNA on this planet, or perhaps the lineage of other consciousness evolved through other places that may have ultimately, because we don't actually know how consciousness works, maybe it comes in with gravity waves, who knows? I don't know. But maybe we are getting echoes kind of in a conscious DNA legacy way from other parts of the universe. Who knows? Anyway, that's really long and rambly. So I don't know that really anybody's going to watch this, but if you are, and if you have any particular things that I can talk about as a nearly 52-year-old kind of in this interesting space of a pretty radical feeling, experientially spiritual awakening while still being, again, very three-dimensional, got a day job, all that good stuff. But feeling that there are going to be more and more of us who are kind of regular people that seem to attune really, really quickly. I mean, I've only been around this stuff for a couple of years, and I feel like I'm just getting major downloads that kind of, or maybe I'm just a quick study, or I'm just really excited about it, and by being open to it, I seem to get a lot of things that help me basically live my life in a place of immense gratitude, decreasing amounts of fear about things that I don't really feel like I can control, and feeling that I do actually have sovereignty and I am empowered because I can change, or I do get to decide how I experience the universe in which I find myself. And I find that very empowering. So with that long ramble, I'm going to stop here. Maybe I'll try and come up with an actual theme and topics for the next one. If anyone does see this, feel free to leave me a message, and yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So thanks. Love you. If you found this, well, you must resonate somewhat like me or you wouldn't be here. So welcome.